there are multitudes contained within the world, right? There are reasons that Hooters restaurants are very successful. There are people for whom how a chef treats its staff doesn't matter necessarily. If the food's good, they don't care. I mean, I think they probably wouldn't want to go to a restaurant where there were, serial murders of children, but a chef who, touches the breasts regularly of his, of women in his circle, I don't know. So, it depends. I do know that certainly business was down around the holidays. A lot of this broke in December. And I know that there were several corporate parties that got canceled because at that level, when you're looking at a corporate function, you don't want to be at all associated with a restaurant group that has a history of sexual abuse or harassment from its leadership. So I think I think corporations are much more sensitive to this than they ever were before. Some individual diners will never go there again, and others, I think, couldn't care less.
So we've had these big blow-ups. They obviously haven't just been in New York. They've been in other markets, New Orleans, the Bay Area, mostly in high-end sort of white tablecloth chains. Do you think that there's been an inflection point where these issues of sort of toxic masculinity in the kitchen and cultures that harbor harassment are going to be on the way out? Or are we looking at a moment where there's a couple of high-profile sort of sacrifices and then, things go back to normal, diners keep going to these restaurants, maybe in a year the wait is back to 2 hours, things get swept under the rug. What do you think about that?
These things have a lot of layers. So, and one take is that indeed this was a reckoning. I think things will never be the same again. Thankfully, I think there was a big cultural shift that has happened. But that being said, social change takes time. I think when John Lewis and Martin Luther King walked across the Selma Bridge in Alabama and got the crap beat out of them, one would think, my God, look at this. This has got to change. It took, we are still struggling with racial inequality in this country. So these things take time. It's sort of like, I think you got to look at it like there was this woods and there was no path through the woods. Now, we've cut a good path, maybe put some stone on it. It's a little easier, I think, for a woman to walk from a kitchen where she's getting harassed to an HR department, or perhaps feels empowered enough to go find a different job and not feel stuck in a place. We'll have some support when she or when a man on the line sees some sexist behavior and we'll call it out. I think certainly the high end, with fame and money comes, I think, sometimes a predilection to do worse, more. I think you could get away with more egregious behavior. I think men who thought they could get away with stuff are maybe not doing it because they don't want to be in the newspaper. So maybe that's a change. I think, my editors are much more willing to entertain stories about inequity. We just did a big package on tipping and kind of the difficulties of that relationship in which a server is kind of set up to be sexually harassed by some customers because there's that implied money exchange, like, let me flirt with you a little bit, and the waitress might flirt back, and then they're going to get a better tip. And there's that inherent, kind of slight sexualized relationship in some cases in tipping. And people, the Waffle House waitresses and, from the bottom to the top know that dance. And my editors, I think, would have never been that interested in what waitresses have to put up with to get tips as a story, as a major story. But the paper put a lot of resources behind a story about just getting women's stories about what it's like to be on the other end of that tipping arrangement. So those kinds of things changed, and I think will continue to be, more relevant. But do I think that men will stop behaving badly in kitchens and women will not speak up and, that it's all over? I don't think so.